Welcome to Preserving for You. This series will discuss research-backed home food preservation methods. I'm Christy, and I'm here with Amber from the Cooperative Extension Service of the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. Today, we're diving into a delicious and practical recipe, home-canned peach pie filling.
That's right, Christy. This recipe is perfect for preserving the taste of summer peaches and having pie filling ready for the whole year. We'll be using a water bath canner and a research-tested recipe from the National Center of Home Food Preservation.
So the water bath method is safe for high-acid foods like fruits, tomatoes, pickles, jams, jellies, and other fruit preserves. In this method, jars of food are heated completely covered with boiling water. Sweet spreads are products that are jellied or thickened and are preserved by adding sugar. Some examples of products that fall into the sweet spread category are jelly, jams, preserves, conserves, marmalades, butters, and the pie filling that we're going to be making today.
So let's talk a little bit about water bath canning. A water bath canner is a large covered cooking pot with a rack. Racks can be metal or silicone, like the trivet shown here. Any large metal container may be used if it's deep enough for 1 inch of briskly boiling water to cover the jars. Make sure that the diameter of your canner is no more than 4 inches wider than the diameter of your stove's burner to ensure proper processing of all jars. The canner must have a tight fitting lid and a rack. That rack is important because it keeps the jars off of the bottom of the pan and it allows the water to circulate freely under the jars.
Great. Well, let's talk about the jars a little bit. So mason-top jars, specifically designed for home canning, are best. Commercial mayonnaise jars or jars purchased with foods such as tomato sauces, peanut butter, or salad dressings may not seal with home canning lids, even though they may seem to fit. They're not manufactured for the high temperatures or long processing times, or at least not for the reuse in canning. They may break, especially when used in a pressure canner. Home canning jars come in a variety of sizes from half pint to half gallons. A pint and quart are the most common recommended sizes. Jars come with both a regular and wide mouth style. You'll want to examine your jars and discard those with nicks, cracks, or rough edges, since these defects will not permit an airtight seal in the jar, and food spoilage may result.
You know, Christy, I really like to do that when I'm washing my jars. It's easy when I have them in the water.
That's a great point. We definitely want to wash our jars, and it's a really great time to look for that. So we'll want to wash in warm soapy water, rinse them well, and then keep the jars hot. Because the processing time of our recipe today is 30 minutes, though, we will not have to sterilize our jars, and they're being warmed while we prepare the pie filling.
Good. All right, that'll save us a little time. So let's talk about the lids. A research-tested canning recipe recommends a metal 2-piece closure for a home-based canning. 2-piece lids are sold with either a regular mouth or a wide mouth to fit your canning jar. They're made up of the flat metal lid and the metal band. The lid contains a sealing compound that will soften during the canning process and form an airtight seal on the container. Traditional metal lids are designed to only be used once because whenever you're opening that jar, the lid can become warped and that sealing compound has already broken down. Unused lids should be stored in a cool, dry location and may be good for up to 5 years from the date of manufacture. Over time, that sealing compound is going to degrade, and so the lid may fail.
The best sources for instructions on home canning are the recently published booklets prepared by the Cooperative Extension Service, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, major manufacturers of home canning equipment, or other reliable professionals. Avoid home canning advice of untrained celebrities, old cookbooks, back to nature publications, or out-of-date home canning leaflets. Some potentially dangerous instructions may be found in old official publications. Be sure you have the latest publications based on current research. We recommend the National Centers for Home Food Preservation website and So Easy to Preserve by the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension Service and the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning.
So let's start with the ingredients. Today we're going to make 7 quarts of peach pie filling. We'll have 6 quarts of peeled, sliced, fresh peaches, which is about 6.5 pounds, 7 cups of sugar, 2 cups, and 3 tablespoons of clear gel. Clear gel is a modified cornstarch that's specifically for canning, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. 5 1/4 cup cold water, 1 3/4 cup bottled lemon juice, 1/2 teaspoon ascorbic acid crystals, or 6 500 milligrams vitamin C tablets. Today we're going to add some optional spices and extracts with 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of almond extract.
Yum.
The variety of fruit chosen can alter the flavor of your fruit pie. So we suggest that you make a single quart of the pie filling first and then adjust your sugar and spices accordingly based upon your taste and preferences. Make sure to select ripe but firm fresh peaches. For peach pie filling, we recommend only using fresh fruit for the most optimal flavor and texture. Let's talk about bottled lemon juice. Remember, in most sweet spreads, sugar acts as the preservative. In a pie filling, we will use acid as our preservative. It's recommended to use bottled lemon juice in home preserving recipes due to the standard and consistency of the acidity. Fresh lemons should not be used since they will vary in their acidity level due to factors like maturity, growing conditions, and storage conditions. You cannot change the amount of lemon juice. Make sure that you're not altering that because the bottled lemon juice aids in controlling the safety and storage stability of the fillings. Now remember, we talked about clear gel a while ago. So let's go a little more in depth. Clear gel is a chemically modified cornstarch that produces an excellent sauce consistency even after that filling is canned and baked. Other available starches break down when used in pie fillings, causing a runny sauce consistency. Clear gel is available only through few supply outlets. It's not widely available in grocery stores, so make sure that you have it before you gather all your other supplies. Spices are optional and should be adjusted based on personal preference.
Let's talk about the equipment we're going to need today, Amber. So for your equipment, you're going to need a large pot, large mixing bowls, measuring cups and spoons, a cutting board and knife, a slotted spoon, a jar lifter, a funnel, a bubble remover and headspace tool, quart-sized canning jars with lids and bands, and a water bath canner with a rack, either a traditional or electric version, and then cling towels. And we're going to be using electric version today. Let's get started making our peach pie filling, Amber. So to get started, we're going to wash, peel, and slice our peaches.
Washed and ready to go.
All right, so next we're going to loosen the skins. So we're going to submerge our peaches into some boiling water for 30 to 60 seconds. Then we're going to dunk them into an ice bath for 20 seconds.
So we're dunking in our ice bath.
And we're just going to move that around a little bit and let it cool for a few seconds. And then we'll take it out.
We're going to remove the skin and prepare slices to a 1/2 inch thick. So we've got a gallon of water sitting here, and we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of ascorbic acid crystals and 6 500 milligrams vitamin C tablets to our 1 gallon of water. We do that to prevent it from browning.
All right, Amber. Well, since we've got our peaches sliced, we've got them skins off, we had them in the ascorbic acid, so you can see they did not turn brown. We're going to go ahead and give them a quick little cook in a pot of boiling water. So we've got boiling water, and if you can add 6 cups of the fruit to that.
Got 6 cups measured out right here.
And once you get that added, we're going to bring the water back up to a boil. So that'll take just a minute after the addition of that fruit. And then we'll boil it for 1 more minute. Once that's boiled for a minute, we're going to drain the peaches and set them aside in a bowl while we prepare the filling. All right, Amber, now that we've got our peaches ready, we're ready to make the filling or the sauce that's going to go around them. So we're going to need our large pot.
Got our
And then we're gonna put our ingredients in there. So we don't need them all at one time. We're gonna start with our 7 cups of sugar.
Okay.
Then we're gonna put in 2 cups plus an additional 3 tablespoons of the clear gel, and that's that modified cornstarch we talked about earlier.
Got it ready to go right here.
Okay, and then we'll add 5 1/4 cups of cold water to this mixture. All right, I'll let you stir. You're closer.
Alrighty.
All right, and then we'll go ahead and add our spices and extracts that we chose. So remember, we chose to do 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of the almond extract, and I'll just sprinkle those in there for you, okay? All right, so now we're gonna cook this mixture until it thickens. So we wanna do this over about a medium-high heat. And so while we're waiting for that, we're just gonna watch for the bubbles. Okay. And make sure you stir slow, and you'll want to have a large enough pot that you don't splash yourself with this hot liquid. Okay. Amber, that looks so thick and good.
Know.
Let's go ahead and add the lemon juice.
Yes.
So we've got 1 3/4 cups of lemon juice.
And remember, this is our preservant for this recipe. So you could modify the amount of sugar. You may not modify the amount of acid or bottled lemon juice that we're adding.
So now that we've added the lemon juice, you're going to bring that back up to a boil, and you're going to cook it for 1 minute. And at that point, we can go ahead and add in the peaches that we have ready over here. So we'll fold them in nice and gentle and cook for 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll be ready to put them in a jar.
Yay.
So we're ready to go ahead and add our peaches in now that that's boiled. So we're going to fold these in.
Oh, it looks so good.
Let's go ahead and see. We want to get all of those. All right, and you're just going to stir that in so that all the peach slices are covered with that filling sauce, and cook it for 3 minutes. All right, Amber, our pie filling's ready.
Yes.
It's time to start putting it in the jars and getting it ready to preserve. And so we do have our jars pre-warmed. They've been in the electric water bath while we were preparing the filling.
We're using a funnel and a ladle to, well, really just a big spoon to scoop this in.
Gosh, that looks good, Amber.
Yes, it does. All right, I'll keep filling. You grab the rest of the jars. Then we'll talk about headspace.
All right, good plan.
Headspace is the unfilled space above the food in a jar and below its lid. Each home canned food product has a specific recommendation for the depth of headspace. For our pie filling today, it's 1 inch. But before we can put our lids and bands on, we have to talk about this tool. So this is your bubble remover headspace tool. So air bubbles are trapped. When we pour the product into the jars, air bubbles can get trapped, which when we're processing can cause the headspace to change. This can result in your jars not sealing properly. To make sure that your air bubbles have not been trapped inside your jar, run a bubble remover that is either plastic or silicone into the product and easily move the product around to release any trapped bubbles. Make sure that you're using a plastic or silicone utensil because a metal utensil will scratch the inside of the jar, and you may not be able to see those cracks, but they can affect the processing of your product. Your jar might break during processing, and then you've wasted all of your product. After you've removed the air bubbles, we have to test the headspace, and this end of the product is this. So it's a stair step, and it's labeled for measurement. So the very first is our headspace. So you rest it on the edge of the jar, and you want the tip to be just at the top of the product. And our headspace is right at 1 inch. So we'll go ahead and remove the air and test the headspace on the rest of our jars.
All right, so now that we've removed all the air bubbles and we've checked our headspace, we're ready to apply our lid. So the best practices for ensuring a safe seal on canning jars include following the manufacturer's instructions when preparing the lids.
You know, traditionally we used to have to bull the lid. We don't have to do that anymore. Research now shows that that starts to break down the seal.
You're right. So you always want to check your manufacturer's instructions or look at the manufacturer's website to see exactly what to do with the individual brand of lid that you're using. But you're right, we no longer have to do that. You do want to go ahead and wash both your band and your lid prior to applying them to your jars, and preferably not in the dishwasher, since this can lead to some rusting along the metal. And prior to putting the lid on, we want to go ahead and take a damp cloth and just wipe around the top rim or the sealing edge of our jar and remove any food residue. Then we can take our flat lid and place it directly on that cleaned sealing rim there. And we take our band, put it on, and then we're going to turn it until we feel some resistance, and then just a quarter of a turn more. So we don't want a band that's too tight or too loose, because then our food product won't seal properly and it may be unsafe.
Each food has its own processing time. These processing times are based on research that tells us how long a product must be heated so that all the food in the jar has reached the temperature needed to destroy dangerous microorganisms. The length of time required varies based on the density of the food, what liquid you use to pack, and its pH. Because these processing times are based on research, they should be followed exactly. Underprocessing can result in spoiled food, while overprocessing results in overcooked food. For the recipe today, our processing time is 30 minutes. Your processing time will vary depending on your altitude, so make sure and check your recipe. Place jars in boiling water bath canner. Make sure that you have at least 1 inch of water over.
Once your jars have processed, you'll need somewhere to set them. So we'll go ahead and put a clean towel out on the counter. This is important to have a barrier between the jars and the counters, especially to prevent the jars from cracking if placed on stone like granite, quartz, or corian. When you're lifting the jars up out of your canner, make sure you go straight up and over the towel and then straight down.
Christy, I always feel like the claw at the arcade when I'm doing this. It's going over to get the prize and coming up for you to drop down for you. Exactly. Up, over, and down.
Up, over, straight up, over, and down. You don't want to ever tilt your jars to remove any excess water that might be on the top. And once you have set them down, they will need to sit for 12 to 24 hours without any retightening of the band. You'll follow the manufacturer's instructions or directions for determining if your lid has vacuum sealed. With a 2-piece metal lid like we have here, the flat lid should be curved downward and should not move in the center if you press on it with your finger. Once the band is removed, you should also be able to tell if the flat lid is sealed in place. If a jar does not seal by the time it is completely cool or no later than 24 hours after canning, you can refrigerate it and use it as unspoiled food in the next 2 to 3 days. Other options, if it has not been longer than 24 hours, would be to reprocess the food or to freeze it. If liquid has been lost from your processed and sealed jars, do not open them. Simply plan to use those jars first. The food not covered by liquid may discolor, but the food is safe if the jar was properly processed and is sealed, and the liquid is only a little lower than the food. However, if 50% or more of the liquid is missing, the food is underprocessed and may be unsafe.
Look how pretty.
They're beautiful.
Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to store them now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is once they have sat there 12 to 24 hours, we're going to take that band off. When we remove the band and it's stored, washed, dried, in a dry area, washed, dried, and then stored in a dry area, the bands may be used many times. If the lids were properly prepped and a tested recipe is followed, lids on the jar should remain sealed for many years. However, for best quality, we do recommend that you use the product within the first year. Wash any food or residue from the outside of the jar and rinse it off. Make sure that you label each one showing the content, the date, and the number of the batch. That way, if you have one that does spoil or doesn't seal properly, you'll know what other jars to pull. Make sure that you store your jars in a clean, cool, dark, dry place. and the best temperature is between 50 and 70 degrees. Avoid storing your canned foods in warm places, near hot pipes, a range, or a furnace, or in direct sunlight. They can lose quality in the few weeks or months, depending on the temperature, and they could even spoil. No one wants that after they've worked so hard. Accidentally freezing of canned food does not cause the food to spoil unless that seal is damaged or the jar breaks. However, if it freezes, the texture is going to be a little different than if it was stored properly. Viewers, we hate you're not here to enjoy this with us. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, please refer to the resources in the video. And as always, feel free to contact your County Family and Consumer Science County agent at your local county extension office. Thanks for watching. Yum, I can't wait.